March 11th, 1974, 22-year-old college student named Barbara Rockey was sitting at the desk of her bedroom in Provo, Utah. Barbara went to BYU, which is a very strict religious college, but Barbara was not like the other students. She was a free spirit from California. She liked exploring new things, dating around, and just asking big questions. Because of this, she felt totally left out on campus, and it was even worse at home. Her 7 roommates actually didn't like her at all. They thought she was weird. They even told people they were actively scared of her. So when Barbara decided she had enough, she was writing this goodbye letter to her roommates to tell them she was leaving school to be with people who actually understood her. Lately, Barbara had also been feeling really unsafe. There were some scary news stories going around about college girls getting attacked. It freaked her out so much she actually got her best friend, a guy named Jerry, to help her buy a gun for protection. But weirdly, her gun had gone missing a few weeks ago. She couldn't find it anywhere, but for now, she pushed that out of her mind. She finished her goodbye letter, folded it up, and put it in her purse. Inside her purse was a beautiful turquoise necklace. It was the absolute most expensive thing she owned, and her plan was to go to a pawn shop up in Salt Lake City that day to sell it so she could get enough cash to finally leave town. Right as she grabbed her bag, she heard a car pull into her driveway. It was her best friend Jerry. She had let him borrow her car to go skiing, and he was dropping it back off. Jerry asked if they were still going to hang out later, but Barbara was just focused on her plan. She just nodded, grabbed her keys, and drove off to class. She was excited to sell that necklace and finally get out of there. A few hours later, Jerry showed up to Barbara's house to hang out, but she wasn't there. He noticed her car was gone. This was totally not like Barbara to just blow off plans without calling. Jerry started walking back to his place, but on his walk, he passed a random apartment complex down the street and he stopped in his tracks. Barbara's car was parked in the lot. This was super weird because she didn't know anyone who lived there. Jerry walked up to the car, looked inside. Resting right under her seat was a note. He opened the door and grabbed the paper. It was the goodbye letter to her roommates. Jerry panicked. The tone of it was really strange and he thought it might be a self-unalive note. He immediately grabbed her roommates, ran to the campus police station, and told them she was missing. The very next day, almost 50 miles away, a worker was hiking up a really steep, dirty trail in the mountains just outside of Salt Lake City. It was a beautiful, quiet place, but when he got to the top, he froze. Lying right there in the dirt was a young woman. She was not moving, and all of her clothes were completely off. The worker was so horrified, he ran all the way back down the mountain and called the police. Captain Pete Hayward showed up to the scene. He looked around and saw it was Barbara. She had been shot several times, but what was really strange to the captain was that her clothes were folded up neatly right next to her. There were no signs of a fight, no drag marks in the dirt. It looked like she walked all the way up to this trail willingly with someone she completely trusted. Captain Hayward needed to know who she was with, so he started asking everyone. He talked to her roommates. They admitted they didn't like her, but they all had solid alibis for that day. He talked to her best friend Jerry, but Jerry was the one who found her car and reported her missing, and he had an alibi too. Then Hayward got a huge break. He tracked down the pawn shop where Barbara sold her necklace. The clerk said Barbara came on the exact day she went missing, but the clerk added one crazy detail. Barbara said she was in a major hurry because her boyfriend was driving around the block waiting for her. This was big because nobody in Barbara's life knew she had a boyfriend. The police dug deeper and found out she had been talking to an older guy on the phone named Richard. Richard claimed to be a psychic from California, and guess what? Richard was in Salt Lake City on the ski vacation the exact same day Barbara was killed. Then things got even weirder. Richard completely out of the blue called the police station himself. He told him, "Hey, I have psychic powers and I just had a vision that the murder weapon was thrown into the water." Captain Hayward could not believe what he was hearing. The police had never told the public that they couldn't find the murder weapon, so how did Richard know that? Also, Hayward did a background check and found out Richard owned a .357 Magnum pistol, the exact same kind of gun used to kill Barbara. And when they asked Richard where he was that day, he was super suspicious. His friend said he was gone for large chunks of the day, so Hayward was sure Richard was guilty of doing this to Barbara. All he had to do was test Richard's gun to see if it matched the bullets found at the scene. But a few weeks later, when the test results came back, it was not a match. It was the wrong gun. Hayward was completely crushed. He had absolutely no other leads. Months went by, then years. Eventually, the captain got promoted, moved on to other cases, and Barbara's case went completely cold. For 25 years, it was completely silent. But fast forward to the year 2005, a brand new detective named Todd Park decided to open the case back up. He was sitting on the floor going through old evidence boxes, and he realized the police from 1974 had saved dirt from underneath Barbara's body. See, back in the 70s, DNA testing wasn't really a thing, but now it was, and Detective Park figured it was a long shot, but he sent the dirt to the lab. 2 years later, his phone rang. It was the lab. They actually found a tiny bit of DNA inside that old dirt sample, and they got a match in their criminal database. When Detective Park saw the name on the screen, his jaw hit the floor. It wasn't Richard the psychic, and it wasn't some random killer on the loose. It was Jerry, her best friend, the guy who helped her buy the gun, the guy who reported her missing. Based on the evidence, this is what police believe actually happened that day. When Barbara sold her necklace at the pawn shop, the boyfriend she was talking about was Jerry. Jerry was completely in love with Barbara, but Barbara only saw him as a friend. When she came out of the shop, Jerry told her they should go for a hike in the mountains to enjoy the scenery before she left town for good. She didn't really want to, but she said okay. They hiked all the way up the mountain trail together. Once they got to the top, Jerry made a romantic move on her. Barbara pushed him away and told him no. Jerry got so mad and felt so embarrassed that he just snapped. He pulled a gun out, and it wasn't his gun. It was Barbara's missing gun. He had secretly stolen it from her weeks ago. He pointed it right at her and told her to take her clothes off. She was terrified. She slowly took her clothes off and folded them super neatly, just trying to buy time, begging her best friend to stop, but he didn't. He took her life right there. Then Jerry panicked. He ran down the trail, drove her car back to the town, and parked it at that random apartment complex so her roommates wouldn't see him. He intentionally left her goodbye letter on the front seat. He knew if he reported her missing and showed the police that letter, they would think she just ran away and took her own life. It was all a setup to throw the police off his trail. Jerry thought he got away with it, and for decades he did. But 25 years later, the dirt from the mountain finally told the truth. Jerry was arrested in 2007. He eventually confessed to what he did and was sent to prison, where he died a few years later.